Again, another atheist pushing the Jesus mythicist view. This is I think it's the atheist community of Milwaukee. Um, I'm going to just say ACM for short, call them ACM for short. You know what? This shows me, this is why I'm a presuppositionalist. I'll tell you that. Or partial presuppositionalist. Um, Atheists claim that they're only led by the evidence. And the majority of atheists that I deal with here on YouTube or on the internet do not think that Jesus existed or he was patterned after pagan mythology. Guys, you know that almost nobody who's educated on the subject thinks that way. I know you're going to talk about Richard Carrier. I saw on your page there that you think Richard Carrier is, he's a scholar who knows this field very well or something. He might know the field very well, but if he knew anything, he'd know that his views are an extremely fringe view. I think the only one, and I don't think his expertise, his education is in early Christianity or the historical Jesus. He's not a historical Jesus scholar. The only one that I think that is Robert Price. He's the only one. But again, you're going to say on here so many things that are off. It just shows, and you're going to mock Christians on here. It's so funny, these atheists, they come on and they act like Christians are so stupid and they're so smart, and then what comes out of their mouth is just so off and so bizarre and so it's like conspiracy theories that just are laughable. So again, we'll deal with this here and let's go through it. I just want to do his preface here. We're going to probably do a couple videos here on this. I want you guys to listen to his preface. It's going to be some cuss words, so be prepared for that. But listen to this preface on this ignorant presentation on the Gospel of Mark. Let's keep on going here.
This video series, I need to say a few words. I feel sympathy for all atheists living in the U.S. Studies show that 3 out of 4 Americans believe that the Bible is the Word of God, as in unedited, infallible, and all that other bullshit we hear. 75 fucking percent. Even worse is the 28% that believe is literal. 6,000 years old, Adam and Eve, and the flood, Tower of Babel, and all that jazz. But let's forget about the 28% for a second. The remaining 47% at least accept some of it as allegory, which is a good first step.
Okay. Milwaukee Atheist Community, or ACM, Atheist Community of Milwaukee. There's a lot of nuances between literal and allegorical. They're actually what most educated Christians believe. Now, I know there's a ton of uneducated Christians in America that just don't know their faith, they don't know their Bible, they don't know Christian theology at all. They're just Christians by convenience because everybody celebrates Christmas and hey, it's a nice holiday, so let's be Christians. The number of actual Bible-believing Christians is very low. Now, when you say literal and allegorical, those are your two positions there. There's some Christians, there's a whole spectrum within that view. Now, there are like I said, most educated Christians believe there's aspects of the Bible that are prose, they're literal historical prose that are history. There are parables in the Bible. There's apocalyptic literature in the Bible. There's symbolic stories told in the Bible. So there's all kinds of there's poetry in the Bible. There is tons of different literary genres in the Bible. It's not simply literal or allegorical. Okay, so you need to bring that out here. So let's keep moving on here.
I suppose. So this is targeted at those remaining 47%ers. Let's get started. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as they appear in the New Testament, are quite commonly referred to as eyewitnesses of Jesus' life and crucifixion.
Even by those who take those Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John as the actual authors, which I think there's good reason to assume that there's good reason why they were attributed to them. I think the sources behind the Gospels were those people. Now, I don't think some of them wrote those Gospels like directly wrote it, but I do think I'm convinced Mark did write Mark. Now, if you knew anything, if you just knew basic stuff here, Mark and Luke were not eyewitnesses, and that's actually what Luke says in Luke chapter 1. He was not an eyewitness. He recorded what eyewitnesses said. Now, John and Matthew would have been eyewitnesses. That's the thing. But John is the ending. If you read the ending of John, he says that we know the disciple who wrote these things down is the witness to this. So obviously it's somebody else is writing what John had recorded or what an eyewitness had recorded. So anyway, just more of this is going to be coming down. I just want to deal with this because it's just, we see this over and over and over again with atheists.
Let's be honest. They're not. The Gospels were not actually written in the order they appear in the New Testament either. In reality, it went Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. As another prerequisite, as I said before, the Gospels are not eyewitness accounts. They don't claim to be eyewitness accounts, and they don't read like eyewitness accounts. Some people would argue with the latter, but you have to remember the New Testament was written in Greek, and in Greek, it definitely doesn't read like an eyewitness.
Do you know Greek, Milwaukee Atheists? Do you know Greek? I wonder if you do. I wonder if you can actually read Koine Greek. I would put money that you don't, and you're just parroting that from some source that you read somewhere, maybe Richard Carrier, I don't know. But that's funny. You're acting as if you know Koine Greek and you don't. New Testament Greek. I would put money that you don't. I bet you if I gave you one sentence to read, you couldn't read it. You couldn't parse it out. But let's move on here. And also, too, how do you know? Like I said, Luke does not claim to be an eyewitness. He says to be recording what eyewitnesses wrote, as does the ending of the Gospel of John. Okay, the ending of the Gospel of John is recording what an eyewitness had reported to them, to that community. Okay, so
it's a count. But let's jump right into Mark, shall we? Mark does a fantastic job of saying what he wants about the gospel and its acceptance and rejection. But none of it actually happened. It's completely allegorical. In fact,
none of it actually happened. It's completely allegorical. Do you know how insane you sound to people that have studied the subject? Again, I did my master's thesis on historical Jesus and my doctoral dissertation on early Christianity. And I've studied the whole gamut of scholarship on this, from left to right, the liberals to the conservatives to the moderates to everybody in between, hundreds of scholars on this. And nobody, I think Robert Price is the popular guy who holds this view, that it's all allegory and made up and all this stuff. And Richard Carrier, who's not a specialist in the field. I see you also have Bart Ehrman. By the way, Bart Ehrman is a lower critical specialist, not a higher critical specialist. Do you know the difference between the two? I bet you don't. You know what the difference is between lower criticism and higher criticism? Bart Ehrman specializes in lower criticisms. This you just, my Christian friends out there, just know when atheists say this, and honest atheists, when they say this, do you know how ridiculous this sounds? It seriously is like 911 truther, conspiracy, Holocaust denial. The Apollo moon landings were staged at a CBS studio level material. When you say the whole Gospel of Mark has no history in it and is completely allegorical, you're going to use the chiastic form to show that. It's like, you just got to laugh or cry because it's such an ignorant statement, and it shows they don't know the material, they don't know the history, they don't know the historical method that scholars use to determine what has high historical probability in ancient sources, not just in the Gospels, but in any ancient source. You go to Suetonius, Tacitus, Josephus, and all this. So anyway, we're going to continue on here. Again, a Jesus mythicist view. Another atheist claiming that Jesus did not exist, that it's all completely made up. So we're going to stop there and continue on in part